Wealth, yoga, wine. Welcome to my podcast. I'm Valerie Hale. Trying harder kills our success. Do you believe that if you try harder, you're going to have better results? Actually, this is a self-imposed trap. We are so determined, we are so dedicated to the idea of trying harder. We are being stubborn, we are being closed-minded, because trying harder keeps us in the same old pattern, which produces the same old results. Now, we're led to believe that, you do increase by small increments, but that's not what we want to do here. We want to stop trying harder, and this is according to Price Pritchett, Bob Proctor, Morrissey. They have this program called Into Your Genius. It's all about our reason, which is one of our 6 innate gifts, which Price Pritchett calls our unseen forces. What's important about reason, it evokes the ability to think, and the kind of thinking that's going to improve our results. Reasoning also leads to being rational. So the ability to think things through for better results. Mary Morrissey tells a story about Steve Covey, who tells the story about a salesman who is rushing to get to the airport. He has an appointment with one of his largest clients. This sale is going to make his year. It's going to make his fourth quarter magnificent. He's rushing. He's really not focused. He gets to the airport, lands in Chicago at the car rental counter, and the attendant can tell that he's completely flustered, out of tune. He says, I gotta have a map. She hands him a map. He's on the road to Chicago, and he keeps going around and around in circles, and he's flustered. He goes, oh my God, this is gonna ruin my whole year. This is gonna ruin my fourth quarter. And he just can't find his way to Chicago. He looks down at the map, and it's Detroit. Now, this is why it's important for us to invoke reasoning and to stop and be rational. One of the things that Mary also points out is that we don't push when we're trying new unconventional ways, which is what Price Pritchett talks about in his U² book and in Quantum Leaps. The idea of you squaring yourself, the idea of taking quantum leaps is to shift gears. Instead of trying harder, try something new and different, Price Pritchett tells us. Take unconventional approaches. For instance, in my podcast now, I've done it long enough to feel confident that I can ask for advertisers and sponsors. Because I know thousands of people from being in the wine industry so long, practicing Kundalini yoga, working with transformation, I pick companies and individuals who are improving the world in some capacity. They don't have to be a nonprofit, but their business has to help the community. This is unconventional because I am focused on what they can do in the world, whereas most people looking for advertisers would choose someone who has equipment that they can sell to podcasters or who builds a website. That's not my philosophy when it comes to supporting another company to be on my podcast. Another person who is unconventional in his approach, shifted gears, but invoked reasoning and rational thinking is Captain Dan Peretz of Dolphin Landings. He's exactly the person who fits into the genre of helping a community. 3 decades ago, over 30 years, he loved sailing. He would go sailing every day, and he started taking people out all the time. And they loved it so much that he came up with the idea to start his charter sailboat business. 30 years later, he has a fishing vessel which goes out, charter fishing, out in the Gulf. They have team building programs. They have weddings on shore, on the boat. They have this nonprofit called Soothe Our Souls. Now, here's someone who took quantum leaps, and the business is world-renowned. One of the things, and see, he didn't have to push. This is something he loves. And we've all heard this throughout our lives. Do what you love, the money will follow. Mary reminds us that we have our 6 innate gifts that will teach us to be reasonable and to understand that where we are today, meaning our bank account may be 0 or very low, we may have a questionable past, we may not have the results we want, but that's the past. And what's important is that our destiny is not determined by our past without our permission. Therefore, you do not let your past have any influence on what you're doing today. Mary teaches us she wants us to take micro steps every day, and that's vastly important here. When you're starting to shift gears, thinking about a new vocation, a new career, rewriting your resume, having better relationships, this is all about abundance and prosperity in all facets of your life. Mary tells us, take a micro step every day, take a baby step. Price Pritchett says the same thing. Start now to shift your gears. It can be as simple as making a phone call, doing research on the internet. Abundance and prosperity is not about money in the bank. It's about us having a prosperous lifestyle, an abundance of health, an abundance of intrinsic relationships. Kundalini Yoga right now is the new moon for abundance and prosperity, by the way. There are 2 kriyas that I included on the podcast details. What's important about this new moon specifically is about prosperity and abundance. We are planting seeds for new beginnings. Again, that abundance and that prosperity, it can be about your health. I have a friend who had a double mastectomy. I can promise you, more than anything, abundance and prosperity in her life would be totally cancer-free. That's what abundance and prosperity meditations will do for you. They'll increase your health. They'll increase intrinsic relationships. Abundance and prosperity is having a fulfilling life, not just your bank account. Wine. Demison Selection is owned by Andre Tamer. Andre, I was thrilled to work with him when I was selling wine in New York. Andre, to me, has single-handedly opened up a specific region in Spain called Basque. Many of you might know it. They are almost a country unto themselves. They're not French. They're not Spanish. If you ask the Basque who they are, they'll tell you, we're Basque. They have their own language, which was finally recognized in 1950s. They have their own culture. As a matter of fact, they created pinchos, which is the origin of tapas. So they're small plates. It is a coastal and mountainous climate. The wines are produced in microclimates, quite honestly, in the Basque region. There are some areas where it's colder, but it is a cooler climate, which leads to a richness in the wines and a more minerality in the wines. Andre Tamer calls them low alcohol and happy wines. The producer that I relish is Amistoy. They are, the 2 indigenous grapes are Honda Ruby Belza and Honda Ruby Zuri. That's going to be in the notes. The Amistoy is an amazing wine. It's a beautiful bottle, and the label actually is a reflection of the region. What I love about these wines is when you go to Basque, they have a specific way of pouring them. The wine is served in a tumbler. It's a flat bottom glass. It looks like a drinking glass to most Americans. It's not a stem glass. They love to pour the wine into your glass about 2 feet above the glass itself. This is actually makes sense because they're slightly frizzante, so it produces a nice little bubble. But the wines are clean and crisp. It's a Mediterranean cuisine. They are famous for their seafood in Basque. This region is so worth studying. I truly believe that Andre Tamer single-handedly has brought Basque to the world in the most exceptional way. In conclusion, reason helps us become rational. It helps us not stay in our old ways and to create quantum leaps and ability to be U squared. The big idea here is to thank and to be reasonable and to be rational. Christian D. Larson says, we have all learned to remember, but few have learned to thank. Kundalini Yoga, this is the new moon of abundance. Practice the kriya. Even if you don't want to do the kriya, listen to the music. It's so beautiful. Play it out around your family. And lastly, de maison sélection is the importer. Look for these wines. You can certainly call me, text me, send me an email. I am happy to help you find these exceptional, exquisite wines from Basque. Lastly, I am not a consultant. I am not a life coach. I create this podcast once a week to help hundreds of people throughout the world enhance their life in less than 10 minutes. Merci et au revoir.